Beach FM, locals talking to locals.
Beach FM, great to welcome back to the radio Janet Holborow, who's speaking on behalf of the wonderful community that is Paekakariki. And Janet, I'm sure it's a community that you're very proud of.
Indeed I am, John.
Indeed.
Just when I think that they're doing pretty much everything that can be done, something else crops up, some other amazing initiative.
Such as? Give me an example.
Well, the most recent one is called Paekakariki, and it's a initiative which has been started by the Paekakariki Orchard and Gardens group. And they're setting up a big composting station at the community gardens, which is at the end of Tilly Road. And the idea is that they'll do a weekly pickup using you fill up your special container, and every Tuesday when the rubbish is picked up, they will pick up any food scraps that you might have. And that will go into the community composting. And then it will be used to grow vegetables for the community. And some of those vegetables actually get used as ingredients in another initiative called Paekai, which distributes meals to people who need meals. So it's just an incredible community initiative, but it has kind of quite a few advantages in that you'll be reducing the amount of waste that you need to put to landfill, which will save you money on bins. You might be able to get a smaller bin, and 28% of our scraps go to landfill. I mean, 20% of our waste is food scraps.
Really?
So, and it goes to landfill. Yes. So that has a very negative environmental effect, because when food scraps build up in landfill, they release very bad chemicals, but when they're composted properly and layered properly, they have a more positive effect and can be, reintroduced into the kind of food cycle. So it's got that positive environmental benefit as well. And when they were setting up the project, they did go and look at a similar project in Newtown, so they know that it can work. And they've also got the local businesses signed up to it. So the Perching Parrot and Beach Road Deli are both putting their food scraps into the system as well. So it's absolutely amazing, and they've got an e-bike which they'll be using in a trailer, and so it won't they won't be driving around in a vehicle which is putting out emissions or anything like that. So it's just a wonderful initiative, and just builds on those other projects, the orchard, the gardens at the end of Tilly Road, and that Paekai scheme too. So it just kind of completes the picture. So
and the resources go round and around
until they think of their next idea.
Well, I think that's an absolutely super idea. Janet, you would welcome the proposals for the new surf club. That's going to be a significant new amenity for the village, isn't it?
Yes. Well, I think it's an essential amenity. So the surf club building that's there at the moment, it's reached the end of its life, and it's prone to coastal erosion, so it's far too close to the high tide mark, and already they've had trouble with their boat ramp, and that's had to be taken away. And of course we lost our bridge around there, so I mean it's obvious that it's not going to be able to stay where it is much longer. They're moving it, they've got a plan to move it behind the sand dune to just a little back corner of the grass area, kind of near the closest public toilets to the Wellington Road end of Queen Elizabeth Park. So it won't have as good a view of the beach, but they do have plans to get around that, and they'll then have a kind of roadway track that they'll take their boats and things down. But the plans just look amazing. They had an open day last Saturday, and quite a few people turned up to that. Chris Farfoy and Barbara Edmonds, who's the candidate from Mana, turned up, and a few people from Greater Wellington Regional Council, and the Chair of the Community Board, of course. Holly Ewens was there, and other community board members, and Sophie Hanford came as well, the ward councillor, and I was there, and we had a really good chat, and some members of the community as well, and we had a really good chat and a presentation about what they're planning. Now, of course, the sticking point is where the funding is going to come from, so that's the next kind of challenge, but he is hoping they can raise those funds and build that building, because we do need that facility for safety, and also it's just such a wonderful community kind of organisation as well. It's got such a long history, well over 100 years, and it's just been a linchpin of the community for so long. But I hope that we can get some support behind it and get that project going. Apparently, Greater Wellington Regional Council are being really helpful with consents and permissions and getting it off the ground in that way. So yeah, it's going to have kind of meeting rooms, and the space will be able to be divided off into smaller spaces, so that the club can be doing their thing at the same time as somebody else can be doing something else with some of the space as well. So it won't just be a space for the surf club, but also for wider community use as well, and it'll just be in a wonderful setting in a wonderful new building. So
indeed,
absolutely, a really, really exciting project, and I really wish them all the best as they go through that process of raising funds. I don't know what that's like.
Oh, goodness me. And frankly, Janet, if they have to borrow at the moment, they might be able to get a pretty good loan. However, let's leave that to them. You've mentioned Greater Wellington a number of times already. I believe that they are inviting submissions on their park network plan, and I imagine the KCDC would want to have a view put forward on that.
Yes, that's right. We, of course, as surrounding statutory authority, have an interest in what happens in the park. So the Parks Network Management Plan has been in the pipeline for quite a while. I went to some very, very effective community engagements that they held at Ramaroa building for members of the community, and some of the community board came to that as well, and local iwi, and just some really good early engagement. But now as it's at the point where it's open for formal submissions, and I understand one of the major changes that's happening in the park, and a lot of people will really welcome this, is that there's the amount of farming that's going to happen is going to be reduced. I don't know by how much or whether that's completely, but quite a lot of the park is going to be returned to its wetland form. So there's a huge advantage in that, because wetlands are a very effective carbon sink, and also it's just the natural way that land was historically. So I don't know exactly the size and extent of that, but apparently it's quite extensive what they're going to be doing in terms of returning that land to its kind of natural state. So that'll be welcomed by a lot of people in the community who haven't really enjoyed not only the fact that there's farming, but what I heard is the kind of farming. So what I heard from my community when I was at those engagement sessions is they don't necessarily have a problem with farming per se, but not large-scale commercial farming that keeps people from accessing the land. So, and of course Queen Elizabeth Park is such an important kind of destination, not just locally but for the region as well, and so many different things happen in there. There's horses and model aeroplanes and picnicking and biking and walking and environmental restoration and trams, and I mean the amount that goes on that piece of land is quite extraordinary when you think about it. So it's a really important part of that wider network plan for parks across the region. One of the things we also wanted to make sure of, and presuming that our council submission will cover off this, is that we want to make sure that we're not overlapping what we do with Aotearoa Park in the longer term with what happens in Queen Elizabeth Park, because there's not a lot of difference in terms of spatial planning between the two facilities. So I understand there was some good early conversations with our parks people and their parks people about say not having an off-road bike track and of a large scale in both facilities, for instance. So so there's been that as well. So the timing is quite good for that, because we can just really make sure that we have complementary facilities.
Indeed, and it'll be wonderful when both of the parks, well, of course, Queen Elizabeth Park has been established for many, many years, but it's obviously morphing and moving with the times. It'll be wonderful to see the wetlands come back, because they were very extensive there at one stage. And I must say, Janet, driving past, I'm no expert in this, but it seemed to me as if it wasn't easy land to farm anyway. It seemed to be an eternal battle with the tussocks that the land was not happy about being farmed. So possibly there's a lot of sense to that. Well, it's been great to have this chat and have the catch-up with pulsating Paekakariki. Thank you so much for joining us today, Janet Holborow. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John.
106.3 Beach FM.